There's 2 days of trials, if I remember, for this case, so... Let's go! The 22nd of February, 9:23 a.m., the Old Bailey, defendant's antechamber. The Old Bailey. This place always makes me feel strange. I seem to get chills down my spine and break out in a nervous sweat all at the same time. Well, I didn't think I'd be back here so soon. That's my line! Poor Soseki, good morning! Good morning, Mr. Natsume. It was only 2 days ago that I was declared not guilty here. Yes, we somehow managed to prove he didn't stab Miss Green in the back. But now this! Another morning, another murder, and here I am again in this hellhole! Can't keep coming to court! I'm beginning to think he's right. It really does seem as though he's cursed. Mr. Naruhodo, I'm afraid I have bad news. Oh no, I don't want bad news. Mr. Natsume, good morning. Yes, morning! So, here we are again. Yes, again! What's the bad news? Susato! What is going on? Hello, Dijishu. Judicial Assistant Miss Mikatoba Esquires! What's the bad news? Oh dear. You heard, didn't you? Oh yeah, we all did. If you come in shouting at the top of your voice, people can't help hearing what you say! Soseki! Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, he's shouting a lot in this case. You've done nothing wrong, Miss Susato. Now, what is it? Well, it seems that the prosecution in today's trial will be led by Lord Baroque Van Zeeks. Oh, okay, that's the bad news. I'm yelling over here. Van Zeeks? Ah! No. Oh, no. The so-called Reaper of the Bailey, the most legendary prosecutor in the land. No other prosecutors are available at this time, therefore we just have to fight Van Zeeks all the time. In the trial 2 days ago, he pursued Soseki-san and I relentlessly. Of course, by the skin of our teeth. We managed to pull through, but still. Perhaps Mr. Natsume's acquittal in the last trial wasn't the end of the matter, after all. Yes, I know what you're thinking. The legend of the Reaper that says, nothing can save a person in the dock when Lord Van Zeeks is the prosecutor. Oh no! Poor Soseki! That even if that person is found not guilty, the accused will meet a mysterious end, one way or another. You know, before we go any further and while we have the music, I need to look at stuff again, because it's been a day. I can't remember what the heck we had. Okay, wow, alright, we still have this. We still have this from the last case. The secondhand book receipt is still with us. Wow, we still have this! Holy crap! This is cool, like, after, like, going off from, like, 1-4, going right into this case. I can't believe we still have this, though. Okay, well... Hello, the coin's gone. Oh. What is it, Mr. Naruhodo? This bar of soap. When we first found it, I could have sworn there was some sort of round disc in this depression just here. A reddish one. Yes, you're right. I remember it too. But now, the depression is completely empty. Where could the disc have gone? Details of the bar of soap have been updated in the court record. Cheap bar of soap that was discovered. The reddish medallion from the center has mysteriously vanished. Spooky! This is the teacup from which Mr. Natsume was drinking. Yes, unlike the other one, the inside of the cup is completely clean. I suppose he must have drunk the contents before the tea had a chance to leave a mark. I always gulp it down too. Sorry, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, if you just sip it little by little, it goes cold. Clearly I shall have to instruct you in the proper way of to take tea. Does your tongue burn? There is no tea ring on the inside of Mr. Natsume's cup. Oh, it is pouring outside right now. Hopefully the power doesn't go out. This must be the cup that Mr. Shamspear was drinking from then. It's stained on the inside.
The tea does that, I'm afraid. Even green tea.
Oh, really? I never noticed before.
You've never noticed?
Well, I never leave it in the cup long enough to leave a mark. I like to gulp it down. Drink tea while it's hot. That's the Japanese way, isn't it?
Oh dear. So many people seem to have the wrong idea about our culture, and most of them are Japanese.
Boy, I feel that! I feel that a lot, especially when it comes to this game. Anyway, hello. Whoever opened this envelope didn't bother with a letter opener or scissors, did they?
Yes, whoever opened it was clearly someone with an unrefined temperament. And judging from the angle of the rip here, the person in question must have been right-handed.
Mrs. Sato. I think perhaps someone's been reading too much of the adventures of Herlock Sholmes.
You can never read too much of it, Mr. Naruhodo. Never.
Sato! Okay, alright, cool. And we've experienced it firsthand. A man we successfully defended met the most terrifying end after his acquittal. Right here in the Old Bailey. I suspect we're only going to be able to get through this trial on the second day of the investigation and not actually do the final day of the trial tonight from the looks of things.
Ah! Do I have to put up with those ice-cold eyes boring into my soul again? Cursed by evil spirits and now by the Reaper? Pair of petrifying perils, potentially! Well, if it's potentially, at least you appear to have hope, Mr. Natsume.
Welcome, student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. I feel like it's implied by the second game that Naruhodo has read a couple of the Sherlock Holmes stories. I think, because he's able to respond to certain stuff in the second game. Yes?
I'm innocent! You have to believe me! You, more than anyone now!
Of course I do. Don't worry. I'll be your steadfast ally every step of the way in this battle. I promise. And this promise to be a hard battle, I fear.
Well, the trial is scheduled to begin shortly. We should move into the courtroom.
Let's go.
Oh, yes, I forgot to say. I'm afraid he won't be able to make it. Mr. Sholmes, I mean.
I don't think Naruhodo's that upset over that. That's probably for the best.
Oh.
If he were here, I might be tempted to rely on his help. And that could be seen as a weakness. If Lord Van Zieks were to notice, he'd prey on it mercilessly. Well, I see your priorities. At least, that's my gut feeling.
Mr. Naruhodo.
You're right! Yes, you're right!
Oh, well said, locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire! Well said!
I swear on this sword at my side, and on the spirit of Kazuma that it harbors. I'll show him what a Japanese lawyer can do. I'll set you free, with honor.
Oh, yes!
Right, technically this is game number 1, so he's still relying on Kazuma. 22nd of February, 9:40 a.m., the Old Bailey courtroom.
In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. I now call upon the counsels for the prosecution and defense to declare their willingness to proceed.
The prosecution is ready. The defense is ready, my lord. Readiness for the trial, my learned Nipponese friend, is not what the defense needs. What you need is readiness for your inevitable defeat. It's not just my imagination. It's really there. Lord Van Zieks has such an animosity towards us Japanese for some reason.
It was some time ago now that he first became known as the Reaper of the Bailey, I believe. These past few years, he hasn't appeared in court at all.
Yet now, he's back in the courtroom. Though for some reason, only when I'm defending. This Reaper, with his curious disdain for us Japanese, is a prosecutor shrouded in mystery. Find out next time. Still, this isn't the time to be pondering that. I have to concentrate on Soseki-san's trial.
Furthermore, I now call upon the 6 ladies and gentlemen of the jury. You have been chosen at random to represent the will of the people in this trial. Are you ready to fulfill your duty?
Absolutely! I had a feeling this larrikin wasn't innocent before. Oh, you're back. All right, cool. Everyone's back. We just have the same jurors from last time.
I must say that I feel especially ruthless on days when my hat refuses to sit right.
Oh, well, I rather like how you're wearing your hat. I think the ruthless look is very fetching, actually. Do you have a crush with Juror 2, Juror 3? Ha! This woman is a badass!
I need to be somewhere at 10 o'clock. I have a very important meeting. Let's make this quick.
I couldn't agree more. I need to take home 5 bobs tonight, or the missus will go through the roof. Oh, may the Lord show us the light here and lead his flock to a righteous verdict.
The British jury system is so different to our own, isn't it? It's quite extraordinary to think that the power of judgment is in the hands of 6 members of the public, and that the judge can only pass sentence when all jurors are in agreement about the defendant's guilt.
Yeah, 6 citizens of London, chosen at random. Or at least, that's the idea. The prosecution would draw attention to the fact that the accused was on trial here but 2 days ago. Accordingly, where possible, the same jurors have been asked to return for duty today.
Very well. Let us commence the trial. Lord Van Zeeks, your opening statement, please.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it is not the intent of the prosecution to cast doubt over your past decision. However, the innocent verdict afforded to this eccentric Nipponese before has had dire consequences. Did the accused repent for his wrongdoing in that affair? Far from it. Instead, he used his freedom to perpetrate a most blood-curdling crime, namely that of the attempted murder of his neighboring lodger, an innocent Englishman. To explain the circumstances of the crime, the prosecution calls its first witnesses to the stand. Oh, the cape's off already! Okay, cape's off now! The detective responsible for investigating the scene, and the accused himself. Right, we actually have the accused today. Wait, we also have Mr. Shamspear at some point. Witnesses, your names and occupations, please.
Yes, sir. Tobias Gregson, Detective Inspector at Scotland Yard's Homicide Division. Ha! Soseki Natsumi from the Empire of Japan. My government ordered me to come here as a student to study your language and culture. Mr. Natsume? Yes, my lord, sir. I'm quite sure I'm not mistaken, that you swore an oath never to set foot in my courtroom again.
Well, that didn't last long.
I remembered it as if it were yesterday.
The day before, in fact, my lord, but close enough.
Believe me, this is the last place I want to be.
Inspector, let's hear from you first. Explain the case for the court.
Right you are, sir. The incident occurred at the Garrett household where the defendant has lodgings. In the ground floor room of the victim, Mr. William Shamspear, the defendant has already admitted to visiting the victim on the night in question. Mr. Shamspear collapsed in his room as a result of poisoning by strychnine. He was found the following morning when the landlord, suspecting something was wrong, broke down the door. This means, I presume, that the door to the victim's room was locked at the time of the incident.
It doesn't help that the real life of Soseki, he did not have a good time in Britain either. He suffered in Britain in real life too. Probably not in this scenario, but you get the idea. Correct, my lord. It was locked from the inside, making entry to or exit from the room impossible.
Although the victim, Mr. Shamspear, lives to tell tale, he very nearly didn't.
The man was halfway to heaven when we first found him. I was the first officer on the scene, my lord. And I have a photographic print here that I took at the time to show how it looked. Yes, a chilling scene indeed. The man looks very much deceased. That's right. Everyone present believed that's exactly what he was. Very well. I shall accept this photographic print as evidence for the court. Crime scene photograph. A photographic print of the scene taken by the police upon their arrival. The victim can be seen unconscious at the table, having been poisoned. Now then, Mr. Natsume. Yes! Yes! As a defendant, do you have anything to say at this juncture? They're haunted! Haunted by evil spirits! Good gracious, what's haunted? My lodgings! There's been a whole series of strange happenings in my lodgings! The tenant before me died in mysterious circumstances, a woman was stabbed by no one on the street outside, my neighbor was poisoned, and me! What about me? I nearly been killed countless times! Killed, Mr. Natsume? How? Even on that fateful night it happened, when I returned from Mr. Shamspeare's room. I lit my glass stove and climbed into bed, but before long, the stove went out, and somebody tried to kill me! You mustn't always extinguish all fires before retiring for the night, Mr. Natsume. But it's so cold! My runny nose would freeze! The point is, I didn't poison my neighbor. Oh, why am I being accused of this? Why is my existence so cursed? Poor Natsume! Thank you, witnesses. I believe I have a reasonably clear picture of events. If I could raise one more point, my lord. One more conclusive point. Conclusive? Go on. Fortunately, the victim, Mr. Shamspeare, has regained consciousness after his ordeal, and he has named the true culprit. Yeah. The poison consumed by the victim was administered in a cup of tea that he drank on the night in question. The tea, my lord, that was brought to the victim's room by the accused. The accused? Oh, good grief! My existence is pain indeed. Order! Order! Yes, that's the crux of this whole case. If Soseki-san is innocent, then why? Why has the victim accused him? Well, Mr. Natsume, what have you to say to this accusation? That evening, yes, I did take some freshly brewed tea with me when I visited Mr. Shamspeare's room, as a gift. The public water pump outside always freezes at night, so I bought bottled water especially to make it. And this is the result. Never will I touch tea again. Never! No, you're gonna touch your tea again. The public pump was frozen, you say? That's not information we've heard before. That will do, thank you. Now, according to our laws, the defense must have the opportunity to cross-examine witnesses at least once. Therefore, I call upon these witnesses now for a formal testimony. I presume the prosecution has no objection, and oh my goodness, it's pouring outside right now. Let's hope the power doesn't go out while I'm reading. None whatsoever, my lord. Good. Then you will give your account of events on the night in question to the court now. Yes, my lord! Poor Soseki. The catastrophic night. It was around 9 o'clock that evening when I visited my neighbor and I took some tea with me as a gift. We had a heated literary debate over a nice hot drink, after which I went back to my room at around 11. My tea was completely harmless. He couldn't have locked the door behind me otherwise, could he? Strychnine takes some time to have an effect on the body. People don't keel over immediately after taking it. The victim would have been perfectly able to lock the door after his guests left. The argument still stands. Okay, but Soseki drank his tea and he's fine. Yes, I see. It all seems relatively straightforward. Excuse me, but that testimony does raise one rather crucial point, I think. Mr. Natsume claims his tea to have been harmless. Presumably, though, the teacups have been examined for traces of the poison, haven't they? Why didn't I think of that?
Why didn't you think of that?
Well, as it happens, no. We haven't been able to.
Why?
Did I hear you correctly, Inspector? Inspector? Scotland Yard has failed to examine the suspect's substance.
How could you have overlooked something so important? Isn't that the first thing you could have done? Or should have done? Why is it always with Soseki's case that things are overlooked? My learned Nipponese friend is falsely incensed. The inspector said Scotland Yard was unable to examine the tea, not that it was overlooked.
Unable? Why? It's simple enough. There was none left. Not a drop. Someone must have been very thirsty indeed.
With current scientific techniques, it's not possible to test for poison under such circumstances.
We only need a drop, but that one drop does actually have to exist, funny enough.
Okay, I'm working out where we gotta go here. Now, how do we get there is the question. My memories are slowly coming back with these cases. The lack of examination notwithstanding, it appears nothing other than the tea passed the victim's lips on the night in question. Did it pass his lips?
I see, thank you. The matter is clear.
Cast your eyes over the jury, my learned friend. What? You can see it in their faces, I'm sure. The recognition of the accuser's guilt. Your client's fate is all but sealed. In mere moments from now, you will lose, and your compatriot will be damned for all eternity. He's right. I can feel all 6 of the jurors looking daggers at me. Okay, no big deal. But I can't let them beat me down. I won't. I love Chunose just hanging on his shoulder.
Counsel for the defense, proceed with your cross-examination.
Yes, my lord. The catastrophic night.
Hold it!
Were you and your neighbor good friends then?
No! We weren't friends! Not at all! Not at all! Never, ever!
A simple no would have sufficed. Then, why did you decide to pay him a visit?
Mr. Shakespeare fancies himself as having great literary knowledge. As a fellow scholar of English literature, we find much to talk about together.
Come now. No Nipponese could understand the finer points of English literature. Oh, shut up, Fanzeeks! On the night in question, what the heck did frickin' Shoseki come here for? English literature. He probably knows more English literature than you do. And on the night in question, that was the topic of conversation as well, I presume.
It was the day of my last trial when I was acquitted. I just arrived back at my lodgings when I ran into Mr. Shakespeare outside on the street. That was at around 6 o'clock. We exchanged 1 or 2 pleasantries, but it soon turned into a heated discussion.
No, not Doki Doki literature.
He was on the way out at the time, though, so I promised to visit his room that evening at night to continue our debate. But did I have ill intentions? No! Not 1, not 2, not any! Not at all! Never, ever!
A simple no would have sufficed, I feel. Then tell the court what did happen when you visited the victim's room.
Hold it!
A literary debate about Shakespeare's works. I think you said, didn't you?
Shakespeare? Ah, a very worthy topic of conversation, I must say.
Yes, my lord.
Romeo and Juliet, who was stronger? It was profoundly pleasurable parley. Romeo and Juliet.
Who was stronger? I know I'm going to regret asking this, but how did the debate go?
Well, we both agreed that we would reach a conclusion more quickly with a reenactment. So we battled it out, in a Greco-Roman style, naturally.
What?
Mr. Shakespeare had all sorts of costumes in his room for just such a contest.
So when you say a reenactment, you mean you were actually in costume?
He as Romeo, I as Juliet,
And after a vigorous wild tussle, please imagine me in a dress. I, as Julius, came out as top. A victory I'll cherish forever. Soseki in a dress winning. Ah, he's so OP.
I dare not imagine that terrible scene of carnage. The fact remains that it was you who prepared the tea and took it to the victim, correct?
I boiled the water in my room and made a pot to take with me. There's gotta be fan art of frickin' Soseki in a dress, man. I heard that he was too poor to have tea himself, you see?
It's true. There was no sign of any tea leaves in the man's room.
I wanted to do something nice, to be friendly. So why is everyone looking at me with such suspicion?
It also doesn't make sense for him to poison him considering he won the debate. It should be the other way around if that were the case.
My tea was harmless. Of course it was.
And do you have any basis for that statement, witness?
Hold it!
Yes, there was not a drop of tea left in the victim's room anywhere, was there?
That's correct. Anyone would think the fellow had never had a pot of tea before. He must have licked it dry. Which is a pity, because one drop is all we would have needed to analyze it for poison.
And you say that you returned home to your room at 11 o'clock, Mr. Natsume.
Yes, definitely. By heaven and earth, I swear it.
This is true. The landlord was I keep forgetting that was a thing back then, that men were also playing the roles of the female. So it actually wouldn't be that out of place that Soseki is playing a female role. It's still just funny.
Landlord was able to verify that, as it happens. He confirmed that the defendant went back to his room at 11 that night. And how is the landlord able to attest to this? He, said he was the lamps, I believe. The lamps, Inspector?
When tenants return to their rooms and start using gas, the lamps in other parts of the house flicker. Yes, Mr. Gerda seems to pay a lot of attention to the comings and goings of his tenants.
There's only one key to Mr. Shanspeare's room. I know that for certain. So he must have locked the door himself from inside his room.
The victim has confirmed that to be the case, yes.
So I'm right. My tea was harmless. Completely harmless. If you take poison, you die. Everyone knows that.
It's not that simple, I'm afraid.
Huh? What do you mean?
Hold it!
How long does it take for symptoms to appear then?
According to the coroner I was speaking to at the yard, about 30 minutes after the poison's consumed. Then the victim suffers violent convulsions, cramping, and stiffiness, and eventually dies from asphyxiation. Asphyxiation.
So there are 30-minute intervals. So there's a 30-minute interval between when the poison is ingested and the onset of symptoms. There seem to be a lot of different types of poison in the world. That's for sure. Oh dear. Death by poisoning again. It's always so awful. 30 minutes is a long time. Certainly long enough for the victim to have locked the door behind the accused after he left. You can't deny that. And it further degrades Soseki-san's alibi.
I have the medical report from the doctor who examined the victim here, my lord. It spells it out really. The accused is the only person who could have done it. Very well, the court will add this report to the court record as evidence.
Victim's medical report. A report issued by Scotland Yard's medical officer. It obviously mentions the poison as well as other details gleaned during the police investigation. Oh yes, I see it here. Delayed onset of symptoms. Great.
Hold it!
The argument still stands, you say?
This is what Mr. Natsume has been saying, isn't it? The pair of them drank tea together that night, so if there was poison in it, the victim wouldn't have been able to lock the door after the accused left later on.
Exactly! Ah! Me and my tea are innocent! Sweet and innocent, I tell you!
I'm afraid, sir, that doesn't follow. You see, strychnine is a slow-acting poison. In other words, it takes time for symptoms to appear. So you could have left the room to 30 minutes after the victim drank the tea. And as long as you did that, Mr. Shamspear could have locked the door after you gone.
But no! We drank the tea straight away! The battle over whether Romeo and Juliet was stronger, that came after the tea.
Do you have any evidence to support that statement?
In my great homeland, the Empire of Japan, we have a saying, drink tea while it's hot.
Sure, a proverb will satisfy the prosecution.
I'm afraid there's no conclusive proof to support the defendant's assertion. On the contrary, there are sufficient grounds to infer his guilt on the matter.
No!
That's the extent of their testimony, is it?
If I could voice a personal opinion, Mr. Naruto.
Of course, go ahead.
Mr. Natsume is arguing for his innocence so adamantly and so persistently. Yet Inspector Gregson just brushed what he says aside. It's really quite infuriating.
I agree. So we need to find an inconsistency in what the inspector is saying, I think.
I'm afraid so. As things stand, the jurors are sure to find Mr. Natsume guilty.
As I see it, what we need to focus on is the poison in the tea. Let's listen carefully to his testimony again.
Yes.
Ooh, it's thundering. Please, the power do not go out. I have very sensitive power lines, and I'm not looking forward to the power going out. Okay, ingested. Wow, 1:30? Didn't like Soseki leave at 11? I'm not sure where I'm presenting. Oh, it's been a while. It's been a while since I've done this case. I'm not sure where I'm presenting. I know what I have to present, but I'm not sure which statement I need to present. Around 9? You left at 11. I feel like I need to present here?
Objection!
Oh my god, I got it! Mr. Natsume, you say it was 11 p.m. when you left to return to your room, correct?
Yes!
And Inspector Gregson, can we rely on the information in the medical report unconditionally?
Of course we can. There's no problem with that report, Sunshine.
I love how Gregson just calls the people sunshine. It's particularly Naruto. I guess he has a chipper spirit despite his gloom sometimes. Actually, I think there's a big problem. Because there's a chronological inconsistency between it and the defendant's testimony.
A chrono what? What are you talking about?
According to this report, the victim must have consumed the poison at around 1:30 in the morning. And yet, the defendant, Mr. Natsume, left the victim's room at 11.
Ah!
Yes, that's right. There's more than 2 hours of missing time there. In other words, if there was poison in the tea that Mr. Natsume brought to the victim's room, how could the victim have fallen ill to it 2.5 full hours after the defendant left? Wah! Same animation.
The defendant's argument is entirely reasonable. How do you respond, Lord Van Zeeks?
I'm going to pour this glass of wine and then decide if I want to drink from it, throw from it, or crush it. I think you're going to crush it. I'm going to go with he's going to crush it. Pray forgive the discourtesy of my mind, if my mind has wandered. I was considering what cuisine would best complement the contents of my hollow chalice this luncheon. Larry the platypus lawyer? How could it have happened, you ask? I do hate to shatter illusions, but my Nipponese friend appears to be chasing a phantom idea. A phantom? Is it so hard to imagine the victim drank his tea after the accused had left? For example, at the time stated in the medical report. Yes, at around 1:30. That's a freezing cold tea, man. Mr. Natsume brought the tea with him to drink together with his neighbor. And in Japan, there is a well-known saying, drink tea while it's hot. Oh great, now you're using it. And in my country, there's even more apt saying. There is nothing more refreshing than cold tea. Okay, but that tea is freezing by that point. The point is, if there was such a long gap, there may be other ways to explain how the victim came to be poisoned. Other possibilities.
What sort of possibilities, Counsel?
He's chasing full brain. Well, for example, the man could have had another visitor. Another visitor. That's a very bold assertion, my learned friend. From someone who has nothing to substantiate it with. Or the victim could have taken the poison of his own volition.
You suggest this may have been a suicide, Counsel.
Objection!
Mr. Shakespeare has categorically denied suicide. The idea can and must be discounted.
Objection!
Oh, baby slap! But he could be lying. Wow, he's really thinking about this.
Is something wrong, Lord Van Zeeks?
I was listening to the sound of the carriage pulling up outside the courtroom. Pray, forgive the discourtesy. Carriage? What carriage? It would seem that the key player in this case has just arrived. Hold it! Soseki! Out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow. Oh god, here he is. A poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. God. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing.
Who, sir, are you?
William Shakespeare, my lord. Alas, 'twas I, undone by these bitter events. I am the victim. What's he doing here? The prosecution seeks to call this gentleman to the stand. With his testimony, my learned friend's futile resistance will be utterly crushed. You're calling him as a witness?
Very well, Counsel. I grant your request with interest. I'm curious to discover what the court shall hear from the victim himself.
God, I love his movements. His character's silly. Happy am I, Shakespeare, to regale thee with my tale of woe, my lord. But I still have my own tale to tell. My own tale of worse woe. I can regale the court with the tale of my perfect innocence in perfect English.
That will do, Mr. Natsume. Let the court now hear from the victim.
God, look at this guy. Oh, wait, you're here too. All right, so that's Mr. Shakespeare. But who's that other man beside him? Why is he here? Yes, I feel sure that we've caught a glimpse of that man before. State your names and occupations for the court, please, witnesses. A writer of words so sweet, they do scent the breeze. An inventor of ideas so profound, they compose the earth. The unrivaled poet, the unmatched scribe, William Shakespeare. Were the great bard to be recalled to life anew, lo, what a magnificent man. Good fellows, I am he who ponders such a miracle. William Shamspeare. The name's Meter Man. Adron B. Meter Man. Adron B. Meter Man. So, I'm trying to figure out what the heck his frickin' his pun is. So, him and the woman, juror, whichever juror it is. Nope, it's not DeCargo anymore. But him and the woman in the new woman in the juror's stand, they are definitely based on bees. She is the queen, like the queen bee and her workers. This is a worker. Adrian B? I can't think of what is. I work for the Ultimate Gas Company, East End Branch Office. Yeah, Meterman works, but I can't figure out why his name is Adron B. A drone bee! No, I got it! A drone bee! I got it as you were typing it out! I remember now. It was yesterday on Briar Road. Oh yes, she's right, it's him. Perfect, that's perfect. Oh, what's this? Drone bee. D-R-O-N-E. What's that man doing over there? He looks like he's trying to see into Soseki-san's lodgings. Is something wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? Excuse me. Could we have a word? Bye. Yes, we spotted him outside Mr. Garrett's house that morning. And he's a gas company employee. What does he have to do with this case?
So, Mr. William Shamspeare, you are the victim in this miserable affair, correct?
Oh heaven, oh hell. Do you command me to remember that sweet poison that did cross me and crossed mine innocent lips? I subpoena him for the trial, with his doctor's permission, naturally. Hearing the testimony of the aggrieved will remove any room for doubt from the jurors' minds, I'm sure. Behold, you only have to arrange the letters of my name to see that me, a seraph, an angel, indeed. No, you're not. Thus be I noble of mind, sweet of nature and verily, honest of heart, as all heaven angels be. Because there isn't a less contrived meaning in your name. No, not at all. The jurors seem to be very moved by this man, I'm afraid. They're actually taking the Seraph's anagram idea seriously?
Thank you, witnesses, for your illuminating introductions.
But my lord, what's the man next to Mr. Shamspeare doing here? The gas man, I mean. What? Me? Well now. Allow me to enlighten my learned friend. You recall, I presume, your earlier impertinence, when you suggested that the victim had another visitor to his room on the night in question, and moreover, that the victim is a compulsive liar. What? No, I didn't quite say that. No, he's right, he didn't say he was a compulsive liar, he just said he might be lying. This young chin stroker is here to controvert your wild claims, conclusively. Is that not so, Mr. Meterman? Hang on, no. I'm just here. He doesn't know either.
I hereby call for your formal testimonies. You will tell the court as lucidly as possible what happened on the night in question.
One may smile and be a villain. Yes, if it doth pain me, but let the truth be spoken. The truth of that wintry night of my discontent. God, whoever had to localize this guy must have had a fun time. Not him, but Shamspeare. The wintry night of my discontent. The snow lay about. My neighbor did cometh in the evening, bearing a gift of tea. But merry, bitter was his drink, and when he left, I did fall prostrate on my table. 'Twas the tea alone did pass my lip that late hour. Not else. I was outside this bloke's window in the freezing cold all night, keeping an eye on his room. No one else visited his room but that short little round-backed eastern fella. What, you were here all night? Wait, what did you say? You were keeping an eye on Mr. Shamspear's room all night?
That's right. Of course, the bloke's window is all but blocked up, isn't it? But there's a little gap in the bricks where you can see into the room. So I spent the night trying to keep my teeth from chattering as I peered through that. The question is, sir, why? Well, now, that's because he's on my list.
What a piece of work is a man! Wherefore wouldst thou not stare in wonderment? What are you talking about? This buzzing busybody hath not part in this play. I pray thee, pay him no heed, make no more ado about this tedious work.
Nope. What you say about me?
Calm yourself. This court is concerned with what happened on the night in question. Nothing more.
Indeed, that is so.
You're mentioning why he was there? I mean, we're about to find out, so. And as the testimony we have just heard clearly reveals, there was no other than the accused present at the time who could have carried out this crime.
Well, I believe this may be the final testimony of the trial.
No, it's not.
Now, counsel, the defense may proceed with the cross-examination.
Yes, my lord. This is definitely not. The wintry night of my discontent. Let's go. Alright, we're pressing this stupid guy. To be clear, by neighbor, you are referring to the defendant, Mr. Natsume. Oh, indeed, sire. Perchance thou wouldst that I call him, the man from upstairs. And at what time did the mustachio Nipponese visit you in your room? Imagining Broke say mustachio is really funny. Our meeting was promised for the hour of 9, and lo did he come to tender a gift of fragrant tea.
Details which are in accordance with the defendant's own testimony, yes.
And we were broiled in such a literary debate on as history hath not seen before. By which I presume he means their discussion about who was stronger, Romeo or Juliet. I, Shakespeare, did play the part of young Romeo, whilst my neighbor played the fair Juliet. Each of us dressed as would our characters be, to bring weight upon our merry experiment.
I dare not imagine the scene.
Frailty. Thy name is woman. Canst thou imagine how dismay I was? Yes, I heard of the Eastern art of jujitsu, but never did I dream 'twould be a skill practiced by comely maiden. Juliet beat Romeo up. This is not helping our case. I believe the court has heard enough about your earth-shattering literary debate. Perhaps you could reiterate your statement about the tea that the accused brought to your room. My liege, I am thy servant. Gladly I would do thy bidding. the true ending of Romeo and Juliet. Juliet beats up Roni. Oh, okay. You can explain why Soseki would poison him then.
Hold it!
Let me stop you there. Mr. Natsume left your room at 11 o'clock, but it wasn't until after 2 that the poison made you collapse. That amounts to more than 3 hours of missing time. And he's doing the crab dance. If the defendant had really put the poison into your tea, that 3-hour window of time is something you're going to have to explain. Gladly. 'Tis an easy task. Oh my god, this crab. What? I did drink of the tea not while my guest is tarry, but after he took leave of me. Faith was stone cold, but at 1 hour past midnight, verily were my lips parched.
Objection!
That doesn't sound normal. Nay, 'tis quite ordinary, sire. After all, thou wouldst recall our fiery debate. Amidst such argument, there would be no time for fiery tea. Fiery. Romeo and Juliet again. And who was stronger? Mr. Shamspeare, in summary, allow me to confirm. Did you not come here with the intention of naming your attacker?
But of course, my liege. 'Twas the stooped lover of words did attempt to shuffle me off this mortal coil.
Ugh, well, we all know what that means.
Hold it!
So, you didn't have any kind of evening meal? Dinner? Supper?
Ha! Fie! Fie on luxury, fie on gluttony. To eat twice daily is but a waste of time.
Sorry?
I would that my belly were full. No more oft than the sum doth rise. What is that motion?
Well, most heroic eating habits, I must say.
Night and day do I fill my hours with learned study of the great bard and playwright. What, do you eat the books? Hence it is that there doth not in my chamber be then costumes of mine art.
That would appear to be the case, as even a rodent was found starved to death in your room. Now I think of it, it's not just food that was conspicuously missing from that room, is it? I don't recall seeing a single play or script anywhere.
For I have devoured them. He really did eat his stuff. Okay, he did eat the books and stuff. You've eaten them? Every word be within my skull. This thou imagine otherwise.
Oh, no, he just consumed the knowledge. Right, that wasn't misleading at all. Now, could you turn around, do you think? Which brings us to the conclusion that the only way the poison could have passed the victim's lips is in the tea.
Me too, Naruto, me too.
Hold it!
But the windows of that house have all been filled in.
A historical artifact of the now defunct window tax.
Yeah, you're right there. All bricked up horribly. But as it happens, there's a little part of the brickwork at the bottom corner that's been opened up. I was looking in through the gap.
Yes, there were a few bricks loose, weren't there?
And for some strange reason, a couple of bars of soap lined up on the ledge outside as well. I don't like going around poking my chain in other people's business, especially on freezing cold nights. But them's my orders, so that's what I'll keep doing, as long as there's breath in my body.
What's with all the theatricals today?
I don't know, man. Out of interest, Mr. Meterman, after the accused had left and returned to his home lodgings, did you see the victim leave the room at all? No! He never left! He was in that room the whole time, as far as I'm concerned. And we can therefore discount the possibility of suicide.
How can you be so sure of that?
The police carried out a thorough investigation of the scene and found no receptacle for the poisoning. And since we know this victim didn't leave his room and hence didn't dispose of this poison's container himself, it's clear that this was no attempt at suicide. Only the culprit could have removed the receptacle.
Ah, yes. Lucidly explained, Counsel. Thank you.
It really was. You can't argue with that logic.
Hold it!
You say a short little round-backed Eastern fella, so you can't be sure it was the defendant then.
Objection!
Oh. How many other short little round-backed Nipponese with a mustache do you think there are in London?
Well, of course, it's only a narrow gap and it was quite dark, so I didn't notice the mustache.
But he showed up at around 9, so I'm pretty sure of myself. And when the person you saw arrived, did he and Mr. Shamsir drink tea together? Someone is sneezing very intensely behind me. Nah, sorry, I couldn't say. Why not? Because I couldn't see into the room all that well, could I? But what I did see was the silhouette of that little round-backed fella wearing a pretty dress. And then the pair of them started some kind of wrestling match. I tell you, I didn't know what to make of it.
I suppose that was the Romeo and Juliet championship battle getting underway.
Mr. Meterman, allow me to confirm one final time. Apart from the cues, can you state with certainty that no one else visited the victim on the night in question? No question! Castman's honor. Hold it! I think that's the jury. I mean, his back might have been back to him.
My lord! Goodness me, yes, Mr. Foreman.
I've kept my mouth shut and listened up to now, but this has gone on long enough. Are you all with me?
Yes!
Are we to understand that you ladies and gentlemen of the jury are in agreement with one another? That you've reached a unanimous decision? Too right we have! Are you all with me?
Yes!
Wait, no, the defense is in the middle of a cross-examination. Guilty. To be honest, I was holding out a bit of hope for you, young man. Especially after you identified those few hours that followed the accused leaving the victim's room. Yes, the 3 missing hours, as you put it. But in the end, what difference do they make? None, as far as I can see. And since that's not apparent, there really is no reason to delay our decision any longer. Like I was saying before, if I don't take 5 bob home with me tonight, the missus will blow her top.
What's that? Sorry, I didn't quite catch what you said. Very well, let the court be appraised of your decision. Apprised? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will state your leanings as to the defendant's culpability.
Guilty.
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 Guilty. Guilty.
Oh, I quite like Juror 4's voice. It's time for another summation, everybody. All of you?
Well, it would appear that the jury is indeed unanimous.
Well, you know what? If he's pouring his wine, I too will take a drink now. So, this time at least, it seems justice will be done. All's well that ends well, as they say. This calls for a toast, I feel. To the guilty being punished. Ugh.
What? Get up, Mr. Naruhodo, please. The trial isn't over yet.
What do you mean, Mr. Sato?
What about the information I found in this encyclopedia of British law I have? That obscure right that belongs to defense in these situations. Remember?
A summation examination. Yes, that's right. We don't have a jury in Japanese courts, of course. But here in a British court of law, if we can reverse the decision of a majority of the jurors, we can force the trial to continue. This trial can end now. Yes, please adjust your non-existing armband. Whatever it takes. I just can't let that happen. The defense moves to invoke its right to a summation examination, my lord. Why am I not surprised at my learned Nipponese friend's inability to admit defeat? You choose to cling desperately to some archaic rule you barely comprehend instead of accepting the truth.
Certainly no other defense counsel in recent times has exercised the right to a summation examination.
Because they all know that once the jury's mind is set, it cannot be altered.
Nevertheless, the right remains and must be upheld. The defense's counsel request is granted. This court will proceed with a summation examination, as outlined in the Encyclopedia of British Law.
Thank you, my lord.
And your fellows prepared. You and your fellows prepared, Mr. Foreman.
Believe me, my lord, we know all about this young lad's tenacity. And we're ready for it. You definitely are ready for it, Bruce.
Very well. In that case, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I hereby call upon each of you to state the grounds upon which you find a defendant guilty of the crime for which he stands accused. as I get up and stretch now.
London was never ready for Naruto. All of Great Britain was never prepared for this man. The victim may not be well off, but he's a nobleman and straight up. There's no reason to doubt the man. Being noble means jack shit. Have we not learned anything from Mangadal? I mean, McGilded.
Well, I do declare the good gentleman has no reason to lie. In fact, I think he's rather splendid.
Just look at the accused by comparison. He's Japanese, stoops all the while, and has a mustache. Very fishy, very racist, my friend.
There's no evidence to suggest the gangling actor is a fraudman. For now, at least.
I really don't care, I just need this trial to end quickly. Of course you do.
3 hours of missing time is nothing when you reach my age, you know. Nothing at all.
Planet Earth wasn't ready for... I knew it. Every single one of them seems completely convinced.
It would seem that all the jurors have come to the conclusion that Mr. Shakespeare is a fine, upstanding, and honest citizen.
If you ask me, they've all been bewitched by his strange theatrical movements.
And sadly, nothing Mr. Natsumi has said appears to have registered at all.
Well, here goes. Let's not forget, I pleaded with the jury on Saseki-san's behalf before and it worked. So you never know.
Before we begin, it might be an idea for me to remind you exactly how a summation examination works, Mr. Naruhodo.
Oh.
Well, you're still very new to British law, after all.
That's true, I suppose. And Saseki-san's fate is entirely in my hands now. By the way, in case you didn't skip, to 2-2 after case 4, and you're in the second game, this is technically the first British court trial you do, so the game wants to remind you how to play. There's always a chance I might have forgotten some crucial detail. Perhaps I should hear Susato-san out. I wonder, should I let her talk me through it again, or not bother? We're good! We're good! Don't worry. We don't have a 2-year gap waiting between the first and the second game. Thank you for the kind offer, Miss Susato. But I've been through plenty of these summation examinations already now. I think it's important that we don't delay the start any longer than necessary.
Of course, I understand, and I'm quite sure you're right. If you're confused by anything at any point, you can turn to me for advice whenever you like. I'll be here for you.
The key to this is really listening carefully to each juror's statement. Finding two that are contradictory, and pitting the corresponding jurors against each other.
Without further ado, please, counsel, proceed with the summation examination.
I'm going by timeline order, so technically this case takes place after case 4 in the first game. Yes, my lord. It's just giving me the tutorials because it's technically the first British trial in the second game. So it's just like, hey, it's been 2 years. Do you remember how to do this? Anyway.
Hold it!
Well, there are plenty of people in London who seem noble but poor. Couldn't some of them also be liars? I've no doubt about it. Like that shaky client of yours, for example. Absolutely not. Mr. Natsumi is no liar. Look, the point is, the only thing that passed the victim's lips that night was that Japanese man's tea. When you take the gasman's testimony into account as well, the truth couldn't be any clearer. Well, that's alarmingly logical. I question why you would skip the first game and go right into the second game since they're both... Okay, you know what? I can understand. They're kind of loose. The trilogy and all the other games, especially if you started with Dual Destiny Spirit of Justice, they're kind of loosely, connected in a sense. So I guess I could see someone just feeling like, oh, you know what? Today I just chose Chaos and want to start with the second greatest attorney. But let me be frank here. I'm a gentleman with a gentleman's value. If it turns out that the old Shakespearean chum is a rotten liar after all. Well, consider this. I can see why someone wants to start with the second game with the greatest attorney because we have a fan translation. We have a lot of playthroughs out on YouTube also. So I can actually see someone, let's say if they've been playing on Scarlet Study, They decided they wanted to skip the first game so they can finish the game and go to the second one. I gladly changed my decision about the defendant. And I'm sure my fellow gentlemen on the jury would do the same. Isn't that right? Well, yes, perhaps. Though I don't see it happening.
Eh? What's that? Elderly gent on the end here, you know? You'll have to speak up.
Look, I don't really care about all this nonsense. I just need this trial to be over. How many gentlemen do we actually have on the jury, then? Alright, sir. I may hold you to that. Don't forget what you said. Alright, if you can show me that the victim's a liar, I'll consider my position. He changed his statement.
Hold it!
Are you saying you believe the man to be trustworthy because he's rather splendid? No, that's not what I said. The point is, the man is the victim here. What reason would he have to lie? And yes, he is rather splendid. So you say, yet again. Meanwhile, the man who stands accused behaves so suspiciously, it's exhausting to look at him. I'm afraid he's not splendid at all. Splendid logic there, madam. Thank you so much. She is no help.
Hold it!
You are also no help. No. Not one of those things is a reason to find the man guilty. But he is fishy. There's no point dancing around the fact. He's Japanese, he has a mustache, and he stoops. You see, you arrived at the conclusion in just 3 steps. 3 steps, like a waltz, in fact. You know, the more I think about it, the more this trial seems like a dance. You seem to be several steps ahead of yourself, though, and you're on the wrong foot. No, there's nothing but circumstantial evidence here. There's no actual proof of the defendant's guilt. But the victim's version of events is backed up by what the big chin man next to him says, isn't it? 1, he saw the Japanese man there. 2, he saw no one else. And 3, he saw the Japanese man there. Oh, that's another 3 steps. All this really does seem more and more like a waltz, doesn't it? Right. And the prosecution will waltz its way to victory if I let you speak much more.
Hold it!
I love this woman's design. A fraudsman. What do you mean by that, madam? It really is a most tiresome problem with the company. Most irritating. We can be absolutely certain that a customer is stealing from us, but without hard evidence, we can't even threaten to take action for fear of being sued. I'm sorry, you lost me a little there. Who are you? Beatrice. I'm the wife of Augustus Ultimate, owner of the Ultimate Gas Company.
Oh, good gracious. Ultimate gas, you say?
What a convenient, what a coincidence you're here today. Gas is the future of energy in this country and around the globe, but proper handling is essential. As I'm sure our employee from the East End branch office would be the first to agree. Absolutely, Lady Queen Bee! Queen Bee! Gotta be used properly. Ultimate gas is the best in the world, of course. I think we may have solved the mystery of the bow from earlier, Mr. Naruto. Right. He bowed in deference to his employer's wife, did he? So would I be right in assuming that the reason Mr. Meataman was watching what Mr. Shamspear was up to in his room? I'm afraid there's no end to the lengths the population of the East End will go in order to steal our gas. So I really have no choice when the company identifies somebody as a possible fraudsman. But to dispatch a worker to watch the suspect day and night, we're very thorough in our investigation. So you mean Mr. Shamspear is... I wouldn't come out and say it in public. But you can't finish that sentence with a grubby little gas thief. You have noticed the public gallery in here, have you? The eye of man hath not heard. The ear of man hath not seen. Faith, was thou would wound me with thy words, were I to let them penetrate the skin. But says here no insults, only choirs of angel in song. We may not have evidence yet, but my workers won't stop buzzing around you until they find it. And when they do, you'll find yourself blasted back to your angelic heights in an ultimate gas explosion. Whoa! Step on me! So Mr. Shamspear has been stealing gas. I wonder, juror number 4, if you wouldn't mind adding that information to your statement. I forgot what her Japanese name was. My pleasure. Was it the bit about ripping that thief apart you enjoyed? A little bit before that part about objective violence, if it's not too much trouble. This juror chose violence.
Yes, of course.
This could be it. This could shift the balance.
The victim puts on a fine performance, but in reality, he's a common thief of my company's gas.
Whoops.
Hold it!
You keep talking about needing to take home some money. What's that all about, sir? Finish, Lash. That's what it's about. What's that? I'm talking about the Derby at Hyde Park, aren't I? It was the Queen's Cup last week, wasn't it? A Derby? It was a dead cert. That's the thing. I couldn't lose, so I took my wife's secret savings but then that hopeless old mare went and did the unthinkable. Oh, that stupid finish lass. Oh, he finished last. I got it.
Oh dear, I think it's clear what happened, isn't it?
God, these names are so good. This is the day that Mrs. uses her savings for a trip down the pub. So come on, let this business lie down. Lie now. Just give it up. No, that's not gonna happen.
Hold it!
What do you really mean by that, sir?
Well, I'm not one to boast, but I get up at 5 every morning, I do.
At 5? You're a real early riser then, aren't you?
What's that now?
I said you're an early riser.
Oh, well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I like to while away the hours in the evening reading books as well. But by about 2 in the morning, I'm usually too tired to go on.
He sleeps at 2 in the morning and gets up at 5? Oh my, that means he's only had 3 hours of sleep each night.
What's that there?
Only 3 hours of sleep each night!
That's right. You see, 3 hours of missing time. Like I said, it's not much, is it?
This really isn't helping. This is not a helping statement at all. The key to summation examination is identifying contradictions between juror statements, Mr. Naruhodo. Right, and once I find 2 jurors whose statements can't coexist, I need to pit those jurors against each other. Then hopefully, when they see what they're saying doesn't make sense, they'll change their leaning. Yes, and if you're able to change the mind of the majority of the jurors, the trial will continue. But conversely, if you're unable to do that, the judge will declare the trial over and move to adjudication. And I can't let that happen. Somehow or other, I have to turn this trial around. Well, I know how we're gonna do it. We're gonna grab you with you.
Objection!
Those 2 statements clearly contradict each other.
Good gracious. To whose statements do you refer, counsel?
Juror number 1. Huh? What are you yelling about, lad? I presume you've heard juror number 4's statement made by the wife of the owner of Ultimate Gas. Well, yes. The victim, who you claim to be noble, straight-up man, in fact turns out to be a common thief. So the good lady says, but there's no evidence, is there? You and I both heard them say as much. It's true, we don't have evidence as such just yet. But the claims aren't baseless, you know. What? You heard me, seeing as his operation has already been compromised. I would suggest that the court hears testimony from an East End branch office employee over there. I'll do whatever you say, my lady. Gasman's honor. Juror number 1, you say you're a man of your word. If I could show that Mr. Shamspear was a liar, you assured me that you would reconsider your decision about the defendant's guilt. Yes, I did say that. And as a man of honor, I'll hold it, as I'm sure the other gentlemen of the jury will. Me? Oh, well, yes. Now that we found out the man's a liar, perhaps we ought to consider the matter further. Well, if I'm perfectly honest, I haven't heard half of what you've all been saying. So if this means you'll recap a few points, that would suit me down to the ground. This old guy. Oh no, I'm not having any part of this. I want this trial over and done with. In that case, I shall change my leaning. Well, that was quick. We got 4 in a row. So, Mr. William Shamspear, if that is your real name, we of the jury demand to know exactly what kind of man you really are. Well, that was quick. That was the fastest summation ever. That's 4 jurors. 4 for not guilty. Yes, Mr. Naruhodo. Victory.
Order! Well, this is quite extraordinary, I must say. As a result of the defense's summation examination, the jury's leanings have changed. And now only 2 jurors say guilty, whilst 4 say not guilty. I therefore declare this court to be in a state of disaccord, and order the trial to continue.
Yeah, he's mad. You have spoiled the bouquet, Mr. Shamspear. The ladies and gentlemen of the jury now find they are unable to trust you, the victim. But ye gods will save us. Some faults to make us men. Some God mend me, I do swear. This gasman speaketh that which concerns him most, not but gas, not but thin air. Aye, it burneth bright a while, but it has no substance, and it doth reek foul.
Oi, what did you say? Do I take it, Mr. Shamspear, that you deny the allegations of gas thievery?
Most heartily, my lord, hast thou forgot, I am as a seraph, an angel, noble of mind, sweet of nature, and verily, honest of heart. Lies. Are you flowery mouth pompous beanpole? Just 'cause I haven't got the evidence yet. He's pulling on his scarf, which makes me think that Queen Bee also pulls on her worker's scarf. Mr. Shamspear, if in fact you are not noble of mind, sweet of nature, of honest heart, if you are a liar, then your testimony should have no sway in this courtroom. It is my considered opinion that at the present time, no other possible culprit of this crime has been identified. All testimony heard by the court thus far heavily implicates the defendant. In short, I would not be unreasonable at this stage for me to rule on the case. Oh no.
However, in light of the fact that the jury has expressed concern about the fidelity of this witness, I believe it would be inappropriate for this court not to pursue the point further.
Objection!
I don't think there's anything. It's a company and, basically it's the top and its workers. I assure you, my lord, that would be a waste of the court's time. The gas and this case are unrelated. Are you sure? Juror number 4.
Yes?
Didn't you say before that although you had no hard evidence to prove this man has been stealing gas, you have strong grounds for suspecting him?
That's right, we do. Don't we, worker?
Absolutely, Lady Queen Bee. Gasman's honor.
Very well then, we will hear your testimony now. You will tell the court precisely why you believe the victim, Mr. William Shamspear, has been stealing gas.
Yes, my lord, it'll be my pleasure. On the ultimate gasman,
if I may, my lord. Go ahead, madam.
This worker's testimony may have a significant bearing on the good name of my husband's company. Therefore, I should like to take the stand alongside him in a supervisory role, if you wouldn't mind.
Dang! Woo! Oh yeah! Sweet as honey! Yeah!
Very well. As an exception, I shall honor your request.
Thank you, my lord.
You wait till the boss gives you an earful. Ooh, it's gonna sting, you mark my words. This guy is too excited.
So, you will both testify before the court on the subject of the illegal consumption of the Ultimate Gas Company's fuel.
Yes. Is that clear, my good man?
Clear as ultimate gas, my lady. Which is the clearest in the world. Queen Bee fan club.
Do you think the gas has gone to his head, Miss Sasato? I think the man is just very dedicated employee, Mr. Naruhodo.
Oh god, this localization is great so far. Except for some certain small things, but the Ultimate Gas Company's investigation. I'm proud to be the company's East End branch investigator and meter money collection agent. Ultimate gas meters accept thrumpety bits, each coin given customers about 2 hours of gorgeous gas. Thrumpety. Thrumpety?
And yet, the meter in Mr. Shamspeare's rooms didn't have a single coin in it. The meter doesn't appear to have been tampered with, though, and the collection agent has the only key.
Somehow he's using all the flaming gas he wants without paying a penny. If that's not thieving, what is? Pray forgive the discourtesy. The irrelevance of this testimony caused me to turn to my hollow chalice.
What do you mean by that remark, Lord Van Zeeks?
Did the mustachio Nipponese poison the gangling excuse for an actor, or didn't he? That is all that should concern this court, and yet now we must listen to this abhorrence. Clearly, what separates the vast British Empire and your eastern island nation is more than geographical distance.
But this could turn out to be crucial testimony. The cross-examination must go ahead.
Oh, there goes the wine bottle. Do what you will.
Lord Van Zeeks appears to be in a violent mood.
Yes, he does. I mean, compared to most prosecutors, he's relatively tame when he's being violent. An attempted poisoning, and an incident of gas theft with no supporting evidence. It's true that they would appear completely unrelated at first glance, but I wonder, the truth tends to be buried in the most unusual places. And the first step in uncovering it will be to establish just who and what this man really is. If his name didn't indicate what he is already. Anyway.
Hold it!
So does that mean you enter people's houses in order to empty their gas meters?
That I do. Have to try to catch people when they're in. Then I ask permission to come inside and do my business.
Does that mean you've been into Mr. Natsume's room before, as well as that of Mr. Shamspeare?
Well now, interesting you should bring that up, because I couldn't believe how little money was in his meter. I mean, how the pair of them survived the winter is beyond me, it really is.
Knowing Mr. Natsume, he probably spends all his gas money on books.
And then when he finished reading them, he probably burns them for warmth. the sass just doesn't end.
You will kindly reiterate your statement about the gas meters themselves, Mr. Meterman.
Not much to say, really, but as you wish.
Hold it!
So all London's houses that have a gas supply are fitted with these gas meters, are they? They're the latest model, the height of technology, developed by our company, Ultimate Gas. And anyone who uses our gas will have one of these meters in their property, yes.
So if a 3-pence coin gives 2 hours of gas, most people would use that 3 coins in a night?
A bit more than that, usually. If they have both gas lights and a gas stove, that is. Thinking about it, Soseki-san doesn't have a fireplace in that room of his, does he? Some people still choose to use candles, of course, and only have a gas for heating. And yes, I do remember seeing candles in Mr. Natsumi's room, actually. And how does the money in the meter get back to you at the gas company? Every 3 days, gasmen like me visit properties of the gas supply and empty the meters of coin. I must say, the design and manufacture of the new meter cost the company an awful lot of money. But happily, it did put a stop to people not paying their dues, for the most part. Ah, because they have to pay in advance, you mean? Yes, exactly right.
Hold it!
Out of interest, how long has this been going on? Weeks and weeks! He's been pinching gas off us for ages!
And you've examined the meter in Mr. Shamspeare's room, I take it.
Naturally, we too. We took it off the wall and went over it with a fine-tooth comb. And found nothing suspicious at all, I presume? No, I'm afraid we didn't. Which is exactly why I demanded a new type of meter to be produced. One with an indestructible lock. The Shamspeare Special. That sounds like it would have cost an awful lot of 3-penny pieces. But even after all that, that rascal's meter was still empty. I'll never forget the humiliation. When I opened up the money box and found it bare. You what? I said, you what? And the look on his face, that smarmy smile of his. Huh. I pulled the meter straight off the wall and took it back to the office. But you know what? Nothing. Not a trace of it being jammied up anywhere. Not a single sign. And you are choking yourself, Sonny. And what's happening to my salary as a result? Down by 3 shillings a day, that's what. Oh no. A life-threatening situation. In a number of ways. You what, sir? Incidentally, what became of that meter? Nothing became of it. I still got it. Oh? Right here! No wonder they call you Meter Man.
I think it would be prudent for the court to sequester this item while the trial is ongoing.
Gas meter. A meter that disperses gas for a set time after a coin is inserted. It sports a very strange lock, developed especially with Mr. Shamspeare in mind. Definitely. Although at first glance, there doesn't appear to be anything unusual about it. Let's move this along, shall we? Continue with your testimony. Though I would say it has as much value as the contents of that meter. Ooh.
Hold it!
There's only one key for all of your meters. Well, in truth, there's another key in the company vault at our main office. But even if someone had somehow managed to get a hold of a key, we know if the coin box had been open. Oh? How? I came up with a rather clever way to expose any little shenanigans, as it happens. Would you care to explain? Well now, in order to empty a meter, you have to unlock the padlock and remove the cover. But when I close the cover again, I stick a little beeswax seal on it, you see? A seal? Like the sort of thing you put on an envelope, you mean? Something like that, yes. Basically, you can't remove the cover again without breaking the seal. Now, in the case of Mr. Shamspeare's meter, there were no coins inside at all, as I said. But the seal hadn't been broken either. So that would mean Mr. Shamspeare somehow managed to steal coins from inside the meter without opening it? It would seem so, but that would be impossible. Oh.
Hold it!
How do you know that he's been using gas, though? Well now, since I started investigating this bloke, I've been to his room more than a few times. And on every single occasion, his lamps have been blazing and his stove pounding. It's the middle of winter and he still turns to me, sweat dripping down his cheeks, and says, "Get thee to a nunnery."
Hamlet, indeed.
I could wring that bloke's neck. I get all hot under the collar, but still, every time I open that flaming meter, it's empty! He's robbing me of my salary, too! What's wrong with the world? Where is justice? But how can Mr. Shamspear possibly be stealing the money? I don't understand. The simple explanation is right before your eyes. What? A toast to you eventually realizing that the gasman could be an accomplice.
You what?
Good lord! Eminently possible indeed.
Now you're making conjectures. Sir, you normally don't.
Well, what do you have to say for yourself?
Please, Lady Queeby, I'm a faithful worker. And besides, if the money us gasmen collect doesn't tally with how much gas has been used, you dock our pay by the same amount.
So you'd be stealing money only to have the same amount taken from your wages. Clearly that makes no sense. Perhaps it's a case of losing the battle to win the war?
No. I'm not going to stir up that hornet's nest. If I were stealing from the company, I'd be finished.
It would seem there is no evidence to support the claims of thievery made against the victim, because Mr. William Shamspear is innocent. Pray, forgive me if that shatters some illusion my learned Nipponese friend was clearly under. Ugh. I certainly didn't expect to uncover another crime that looks like it's been taking place in the very same room. According to the testimony, it's only the meter in Mr. Shamspear's room that's under suspicion. It does seem as though perhaps it's nothing to do with the incident involved Mr. Natsume. I know, it does seem that way, but the fact is, since I've been practicing law in England, I feel like I've encountered this at least once already. Cases that are interlinked. Oh, it might seem that two cases have nothing to do with one another at first, but in fact they're intimately connected. Yes, we have experienced that before, haven't we? I wonder if this is another instance. Oh yeah, definitely. Perhaps, but we can't be sure of that yet. If the Ultimate Gas Company has been investigating Mr. Shamspear so earnestly, there must be something to it. But then, how has he been managing to steal their gas? That's a question. Let's look at this thing. It's a very sturdy looking padlock, isn't it? And the money box is sealed with beeswax too. So if Mr. Sholmes were to get up to any mischief, he'd be found out immediately. Mr. Naruhodo, mischief of that kind is not the sort of thing that Mr. Sholmes would... You know, you didn't finish that entire sentence, You know you didn't finish that sentence, don't you? Well, anyway, it's understandable that the gas company would want to safeguard the money that's rightfully theirs. But it does feel a little over the top, perhaps, doesn't it? Hello? Oh, Have you spotted something, Mr. Naruhodo? Just here, there's a little hole. Do you see? Goodness, you're right. I wouldn't have noticed. It's not a very neat hole, is it? Not professionally made, I'd say. So, you think it might have been opened by Mr. Shamspear? Possibly. It seems the people Ultimate Gas must have missed it.
How do you miss a hole like that?
Well, it certainly seems to go all the way through to the inside. Yes, but there's no way a coin could fit through there. That's true, but even so, it seems more than a little suspicious. There is a tiny hole in its base. Anything else for me to look at? Nope. No, stop! B! Get me out! Where am I presenting? Okay. That's probably it.
Objection.
Lady Ultimate, I'm afraid to say that this meter clearly does show signs of having been tampered with.
What? Get away! I've been over and over that thing. I'm telling you, there's nothing wrong with it.
In that case,
to be or not to be...
What do you have to say about the small hole that's been made at the base of the coin box?
Hole? What?
You're right. You're quite right. There's a little hole there. The meters aren't supposed to have that. None of the others do. In other words, we can assume that Mr. Shamspear secretly opened up this hole himself. Yes, I wouldn't be at all surprised. But why? Yeah, why? I mean, it's tiny. You couldn't get a farthing through that. Lady Altamont, I wonder if you could give the court some more details about your meter design. What sort of details? Well, what I'd specifically like to know is how it differentiates coins. How does the meter tell the difference between different coins? What do you mean? Well, for example, if someone were to put in a 1 penny coin, that wouldn't work presumably, wouldn't it? No, of course not. So, well, how does the meter know that the coin it's been fed is a thrumpeny bit? Ah, I see what you're getting at now. The meter tells coins apart by their shape and size, which includes their thickness. A thrumpeny bit is about 3/4 of an inch in diameter, you see? Other coins just won't fit. Oh, I see. It's clearly been very well thought out. Has it? I guess it is in that time period.
The witness will amend her formal testimony with that information in case it is pertinent.
It is definitely pertinent.
As you wish, my lord.
I think I have something I can present now.
The meter is designed for coins the exact diameter and thickness of a thrumpeny bit. Nothing else will fit.
Hold it!
Let's press it first, though. But conversely, then, it would seem that anything matching a 3-pence coin exactly in terms of diameter and thickness could equally well be used. What would that be true? Well, yes, in a way. The weight comes into it to a certain extent as well. And we thought of that though anyway. If I find any fake coins inside the coin box when I empty the meter, the contract says the customer has to pay 100 times the amount they diddled as a fine. Ooh. Oh! I don't think I've ever seen Meter Man make that movement. I've never seen him do that. I don't remember that animation. We live for the moments like that, us gasmen do. Live for them. Yeah, because you're gonna get a bonus.
It would seem the gas pump company has thought of everything.
Wahoo! Hurrah for gas! Hurrah for cash! Ultima all the way!
That's quite enough of that.
Remind me, how big are the thrumpeny bits?
About 3/4 of an inch across.
What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? Is this 2 centimeters measurement significant? Or perhaps there's some other aspects of the meter's construction that we should be focusing on? Yes, you may be right. Perhaps I should try a different tact here. No, you don't! No, you don't! Asking about whether the meter can be dismantled first. Nope, leave it.
Let us return to the testimony.
Of course, my lord. As I was saying, ultimate meters are unsurpassed. They can't be manipulated.
Objection!
Oh, I can't. No? What? Contradiction when you please have evidence here. Undeniably.
Counsel, I fail to see why there's a contradiction at all.
I think perhaps that in itself is a contradiction. No! You gotta be kidding me! No, that's definitely it! What the heck? Wait. Do I have to present the photo first? Okay, you know what? I'm going to save. I'm going to present one more time, and if this is not correct, then I will figure something out.
Objection!
Nope, okay. Alright, sir. Okay, sir, that's fine. Remember when I I said, I don't remember how I did this case anymore. I know I have to get somewhere, but now it's like, okay, maybe I have to look at dismantling it? I know the answer, I just can't get to it. Alright, well, let's look at dismantling it then. How can the meter be dismantled?
Dismantled?
Yes, given that there are no signs of it having been forced. I'm wondering if perhaps rather than being broken open, it might have been taken apart.
Well, yes, that does make some sense. The padlocks are made by a first-class locksmith from the finest quality steel. And the meter box itself is made from plate of steel as well.
I don't think this is it.
Welded shut to ensure it can't be opened again. I can assure you it's quite impossible to dismantle it.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that's it. Woohoo! Yeah, nothing leaks from an ultimate meter. No coins, no gas, no nothing. I see.
The witness will amend her formal testimony with that information in case it is pertinent. As you wish, my lord.
Am I gonna have to use story mode? Cause I'm stuck. All joints on the meter are welded shut.
All joints on the meter are welded shut and the lock is made from solid steel. There's no way to dismantle it.
Hold it!
Has anyone ever tried? Oh yeah, they've tried, but they've all given up before long.
After all, if they actually broke the meter, the company would be able to take legal action.
Yes, that makes sense.
What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? Is its wielded construction significant? Or perhaps there's some other aspect of the meter's construction that we should be focusing on?
Am I presenting the wrong thing here? Don't worry, I'm going to... Somehow he's using flaming gas he wants without paying a penny. Oops. Okay, I've already read this. I'm figuring this out. I may have to use story mode to save my ass. I'm not sure what's going on here.
Objection!
Oh my god, okay, it looks like I'm gonna have to do something here. I'm pretty sure the statement I need to get... I'm pretty sure I'm on the right statement here, but I don't know why nothing is working here. What the heck am I doing? Do I have to examine this again? Oh my god, are you kidding me? Oh, look at this bar. I have to re-examine this. There's a circular depression on this side, about 2 meters across.
Or 3/4 of an inch.
This is what happens when I know what's going on, and I think way too far ahead.
Do you think...
We did find this soap at the scene, didn't we?
Yes, there were 2 bars on that little ledge just outside the window, so we took this one. But I'm sure that's when we first found it. There was some sort of reddish medallion in the middle there. I remember it clearly.
Yes, but there's no sign of it now. Where could it have gone? Okay, game. I see how it is. I examined it earlier. Well, I guess we didn't have the pertinent information.
Objection!
There we go! Ha! I was on the right track. I just had to re-examine the damn soap. Soap. My weakness. Let me just confirm something here. If the diameter and thickness were to be correct, the meter would accept any object as if it were a threepenny bit. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Now, I'm not against using story mode. I'm honestly really curious how it plays out if I use story mode, but I'm determined to at least try and figure out what the heck I did wrong, especially when I knew what I needed to do. But the game is very specific and I had to do it. Well, by something of coincidence, while we were investigating Mr. Shamspeare's room, we found a particular item that matches the dimensions perfectly.
Something the same size as a threepenny bit. What was it?
The item in question is this. What? Have you been inhaling gas? That's a bar of soap!
It certainly looks nothing like a threepenny bit, I must say.
It looks like I'm going to have to point out exactly what I mean here. Like always, what's so important about the soap is this part here. Well,
Got it!
got it! Let's go! You have to turn over the soap to see what I mean.
Oh! Are you referring to that round depression in the middle of the soap there?
That's right, a depression that's approximately 3/4 of an inch in diameter. Or in other words, almost exactly the same size as a threepenny bit.
Get away! Does anyone here present have in their possession a threepenny bit? Quickly now, hand over your coins, ladies and gentlemen.
It sounds rather like a highway robbery, doesn't it? Take all the money.
Thanks to a kind member of the public in the gathering, I have here a threepenny bit. Now to see if it fits. My word, it couldn't be more snug.
Yes, as I suspected. This, without a doubt, is a vital clue to explain how the ultimate gas company is being defrauded. Jection theme!
Well, I don't believe it.
So, your assertion amounts to what? That some inferior bar of soap has a tentative connection to the theft of gas? Yes! The depression in the soap was clearly made by a threepenny bit.
I must concur, at least, that pushing a coin with some force into a poor quality bar of soap such as this is a remarkably simple way of replicating the coin's shape.
And then you could use, well, some melted wax or something to pour into the mold. You could make fake coins in no time. This brings all the pieces of the puzzle together. It's the method Mr. Shamspeare has been using to steal the gas. That's the missing link. And now, if I follow the chain of thought, it's going to bring me to a new explanation for what happened that nobody's considered yet. Shamspeare didn't drink that tea.
But this is all nonsense. If the man had been making fake coins, my worker here would have found them when he emptied the meter. Quite true, Lady Ultimate. In the absence of some black magic that could make them disappear.
I see. That's what we're dealing with, is it? There's one form of black magic that could cause the fake coins to disappear into thin air. Yes. Exactly, and the meter here gives it away.
What on earth?
There are remnants of the magical method used visible on the gas meter taken from the victim's room.
If that is your assertion, counsel, the defense will identify these remnants for the court at once. Where on the meter can the remnants of the method used to make the fake coins disappear be seen?
Bum, bum, bum.
Got it!
I found this bar of soap at the scene of the crime, just outside the victim's window. Outside? Yes, outside, where you yourself, Mr. Meataman, were loitering in the freezing winter air. That's where we found this soap.
Ah, I get it!
That's right. The answer, of course, is ice.
Did you say ice?
Mr. Shamspeare has been leaving soaps like this outside his window each evening, filled with water. After a night outside in the bitter cold, the water is completely frozen solid the next morning. Then he takes his fake coins of ice and feeds them into the gas meter, giving him light and warmth in spades. And as his room becomes very comfortably warm, the ice now inside the meter coin box melts, turning back into water and draining harmlessly away through the small hole made in the underside of the meter. That is how, without leaving any evidence of his wrongdoing, this man has been stealing ultimate gas. I know what you're about to say, Van Zeke, but I'm about to prove how this gas stealing is connected to the current case. Just like that. So simply. Is he trying to make us look like idiots? I think he already did. He's been fooling us all with some bars of soap and some water. That's right, madam. I don't believe it. It can't be true. Do you have any idea how much money we spent to develop that new meter? And now you have the audacity to suggest that a bit of soap and some water can render it totally useless? Don't yell at me. I'm fairly sure I didn't design it. Evidence. Sorry? I want evidence. If you're going to stand there and tell me our meters are rubbish, I want to see proof. I never said that. She's very good at enforcing accountability, isn't she? Very well, Lady Altamont. If you'd like evidence, I'll prove it. What? Mr. Naruhodo, are you saying you do actually have evidence to support this theory? I did notice a trace of something that bothered me a little at the time. And I have a feeling that this theory we've come up with now could explain it. The piece of evidence that substantiates the theory about how Mr. Shamspear has been stealing gas is this photo. This is a photograph of the scene at the point when the victim was discovered, taken by Inspector Gregson. And it clearly shows the remnants of the crime carried out by Mr. Shamspear. What remnants? Here you can see the gas meter on the wall in Mr. Shamspear's room. Now, look closely at the floorboards directly underneath the meter. What is that? Some kind of grubby stain. Almost certainly, it's a water stain resulting from the liquid that drained out of the hole made in the meter. Oh! If one coin gives around 2 hours of gas usage and the occupant was heating his room in all his waking hours, we can imagine he would have used around 10 of his fake coins each day. The melting ice inside the meter's coins box would have been dripping out almost constantly, leaving a stain on the floor. This is awful. And there's further evidence, too. Mr. Shamspear is slumped over his table, apparently having consumed strychnine. And right there next to him is a bar of soap broken in half. You're right.
It would appear to me then, Counsel, that the man was eating the soap. Was he?
No! Judge! Pardon me for disagreeing with your lordship, but certainly not. He didn't beat the bush there, did he? In truth, Mr. Shamspear was found with a fork in his hand.
A meal of soap is sounding increasingly likely.
Do you mean to say he was using the fork too? Yes. Naruto was so confident to extract a frozen coin from the bar of soap. Oh, but the bar broke in half. So perhaps it didn't go very well.
Good gracious.
Fork that soap. Oh, wow! Thrown the wine bottle twice! Twice! In one trial. Lord Van Zeek's. I was throwing my hand up in despair, and happened to catch my hollowed bottle on the way. Pray forgive my maladroit mistake.
What is the meaning of this, Counsel?
Allow me to pose my learned friend a question. What exactly did you establish with your most recent cross-examination? Where the tea went? Well, that Mr. William Shamspear is a liar and a thief. In other words, that his testimony is unreliable. That's it. That's exactly it. Very well. Let us assume the man is a liar. Now allow me to pose another question. What possible difference does that make? Well, we know that suicide can be discounted. Scotland Yard's investigation revealed no sign of another vessel that contained poison. And on the night in question, there were no visitors to the room except the accused. The young gasman's testimony, which we have no reason to doubt, has confirmed that. Furthermore, the only possible way the poison could have entered the victim's body is via the tea. The court has seen no evidence whatsoever that suggests otherwise. Even if William Shakespeare is the liar you claim him to be, these facts have been objectively established. There's no escaping it. Therefore, in light of these facts, the prosecution calls for immediate adjudication.
You... What?
Order! Well, counsel, how does the defense respond?
I know where it went. Please let me get there, Mr. Naruhodo.
What was the point of that last cross-examination? Did it actually get us anywhere? Or did it make no difference at all? Like Lord Van Zeeks is saying, raise an objection.
No, this isn't over. The defense will not rest.
What?
But counsel, you've successfully explained everything. You've identified and substantiated the inscriptions method employed by Mr. Shakespeare to consume gas. What more is there to discuss?
Lord Van Zeeks just highlighted 3 facts in order to make his point, but contrary to what he would have the court believe, not all of them have been objectively established at all. What are you trying to say, my Nipponese friend? At least one of those so-called facts is an assumption, made due to a lack of evidence. The tea. Sir, the tea. But the situation has changed now, following the cross-examination of the latest witness to take the stand. Don't be absurd. What is this nonsense? Yes, when you bring everything we've learned so far together and consider it as a whole, it's clear. There's a question that we now need to reconsider. Namely, was the poison in the tea? We've all been led to believe that the strychnine poison that afflicted Mr. Shakespeare was in the tea brought to him by Mr. Natsumi, but that's conjecture at best.
Objection!
The victim has testified that nothing else passed his lips that night. There is no other possibility. And since there was no trace of the tea left at the scene, it couldn't be tested for traces of poison.
Objection!
As I said, the situation has changed. Because in fact, some of Mr. Natsume's tea was left at the scene. And a particular piece of evidence proves it.
Objection!
A ludicrous claim. Ludicrous. Scotland Yard detectives investigate the scene exhaustively. What evidence are you suggesting they missed?
The defense has made a bold claim indeed. Very well, counsel. Present your proof. What evidence from the scene of the crime can tell us the nature of the defendant's tea?
Am I showing the picture? Or am I showing the soap?
Take that!
Well, I'm gonna find out. Good gracious. The soap again? There's the same bar the victim used to fashion his coin of ice?
Yes, that's right, my lord. It just come back to me. Something about when we first found this bar of soap at the scene yesterday. It's more bars of soap. Soap? What are bars of soap doing lined up on a ledge outside the window? I'm quite certain that when we originally stumbled upon the bars of soap, there was actually a froze coin in each bar. So you discover the gas thief's coin factory. Fascinating. In a way, yes, but there's more. The coins we found in the soap at the time weren't normal ice.
There was something strange about them, you mean?
Exactly. Something very obviously strange. They were red. The ice was red. No. You mean... That's right. It's obvious to me now. The fake coins in the soap. were made from frozen tea.
What?
I would remind the court of a statement made by Mr. Natsumi earlier in this trial.
That evening, yes, I did take some freshly brewed tea with me when I visited Mr. Shamspeare's room as a gift. The public water pump outside always freezes at night, so I bought bottled water especially to make it. And this is the result. Never will I touch tea again. Never!
Yes, I believe there had been a snowfall that day. It was particularly cold. Sadly, on such occasions, the poorly constructed water mains in the East End are prone to freezing.
So on the night in question, Mr. Shamspeare, having no running water to use, was forced to use the tea brought by Mr. Natsumi in order to make his fake coins.
My word!
Tea coins. There were 2 bars of soap on the window ledge when my judicial assistant and I investigated the scene. That's right, and we only borrowed 1 of them. Which means that even as we speak, some of the defendant's tea is still present at the scene of the crime, frozen solid in a bar of soap outside Mr. Shamspeare's window.
Extraordinary!
Earlier today, Inspector Gregson informed the court that if even 1 drop of the tea remained, Scotland Yard would be able to analyze it for poison. As such, we are now in a position to prove or disprove what has until now been mere conjecture. Like a confident Naruhodo, by finding out for sure whether or not Mr. Natsumi's tea actually contained strychnine at all.
Ugh, you smug Nipponese.
Hey, he's allowed to, sir. He's allowed to. My lord, we cannot do the defendant the injustice of passing judgment now. He earned that smugness. The police should be dispatched to recover the remaining bar of soap from the scene at once. And the defense requests a thorough analysis of the frozen tea embedded in it to determine whether or not it contains any poison.
Rubble! Bailiff! Instruct the police to attend the scene at once.
Yes, my lord, understood.
It would seem we have no choice but to suspend these proceedings for the time being. I trust you have no objection, Lord Vanzeeks.
None, my lord.
Scotland Yard will recover the tea from the scene and carry out the requisite test immediately. The trial will resume at the same hour tomorrow. The prosecution and defense may conduct further investigations as appropriate in the interim.
Yes, my lord. Me too, Naruhodo, me too. Well, we managed to scrap through there somehow.
Thank you, counsels. Court is adjourned until tomorrow.
Exactly. He needs to replenish his stock for the next day. To be continued. So we get to have a nice break.